What happens if a situation arises that
The wrong one.
Have you ever wondered what was out there in the night sky? Stared up at the stars in the hopes of seeing something out of the ordinary? Have you heard unexplainable noises coming from a vacant room, or watched a shadow cross the wall in front of you? Have you asked yourself if there is life after this one, or if you had life before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? If you have, you were on the Fringe. Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Philip.
And I'm Mark.
I'm Pam.
I'm Jess.
And if that opening was any indication of the way the show's going to go, it's going to go fabulous. We can. I
thought I
couldn't
was
think
supposed to be the dumb one.
Oh well, I
I
took
mean-
your mantle, Mark. Like I said, I wasn't paying attention.
I have to come up with a new stick now. Damn it.
You want to trade nicknames?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't think of what to call tonight's show. So I mean, because I'd mentioned to Mark, because we're gonna look at something else I'd seen online, and the girls kind of started researching it while we were at work, and they're like, "No, this is all BS." You know, this is I was gonna look up, was it 1988, the world ending or something like that.
Mhm.
I was like, man, that might be fun to check out and do a show on and all that. But apparently, it's a couple other podcasters trying to get this rolling. From
Yeah.
what you guys were saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of. We'll give it
Yeah.
some time to see if it percolates into something actually real.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
I
So a lot
tracked
of
it
time.
back. You can only find it on TikTok, and the original post was from early November 2023, so just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And the day before that, there was one podcast about it, and I don't like to point fingers, but it looks as though maybe the guys who run the podcast, their Twitter handle kind of covered.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
one.
And even the guy that his name's the Damn It Man. He's like, I love a good conspiracy, but yeah, I don't know about this one. And he was the I think that's the one that I sent you guys. It's like, this is the only thing I've seen on it, but
I got
Yeah,
you.
well,
That
I
was
was
a bummer.
disappointed because I thought it was going to be good. And maybe it will someday. I don't know.
Some will come
hold
up.
out hope. I'll hold out hope.
I mean, there's plenty of conspiracy theories out there we can run around and check out. Hey, Alicia and Chris and Sylvian, how are you guys doing tonight? Enzo, he's already kind of been in the chat, and he was asking us about the title. You know, it's Potluck. You know, it's kind of like you're going to your grandmother's, you know, and everybody bringing something to eat. You know,
I brought
and
the beans.
right. So that's kind of where I left it. I was like, you know, we're just going to throw it together.
you're
Nobody
not allowed
brings
it.
beans to
Smoked
my
mac and
potluck,
cheese, Jess.
my potlucks anymore. I don't know why.
I
You've
got to say,
learned.
Mark, you do make some pretty good beans. So
Oh, okay. Everybody enjoys them, whether they want to or not.
right.
I think the last
Before and
potluck
after?
I was at was actually at Phil's house.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's probably the last
sure
time I
was.
was too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Been a while.
So yeah, I mean, we thought we'd just bring in some stories, kind of reminiscent of the old Weird News Wednesdays, like we used to have when this show was on Wednesday evenings. Like we're trying to do 2 a week, and that was pretty hectic. You know, so it's a lot easier to manage now that we're every other Monday. You know, we have time to think about it, and something happens like this whole thing this week was, you know, we were able to kind of bounce back, check it out. Okay, let's just do this. Something real quick, real easy. Enzo said, yeah, eventually a doomsday cult will be right. Yeah, eventually they will.
And they'll go, we told you.
I didn't bring a lot to the table tonight. So I'll save mine for last, you know, if you want. But I don't know. I mean, we're going to just run down and kind of everybody brought something that sounds really interesting. So we'll run with it. So who wants to go first?
All right. Whoever wants to go, I can go first. I don't care.
Go, Mark.
All right. I got some creepy Kansas stories from CJ Online, the Topeka Capital Journal. You guys have heard of the Church of the Damned, right?
Yes.
Is that right? I don't know if our viewership has. Large abandoned church building at 1600 Southwest Harrison in Topeka was a magnet for vandals, ghost hunters, and homeless people until it burnt down in 2016.
Yep.
So the Church of the Damned is no more.
Wah, wah.
It's sad. So anyway, it was arson. So somebody, just got ahead of themselves, I guess, because it was condemned.
Yeah, was it somebody?
Anybody heard about the State House ghosts in Kansas? Apparently, we have ghosts in our State House.
In the Capitol?
Yeah, in the Capitol Rotunda type thing. July 7th, 1965, a distraught 43-year-old woman named Eileen McLean set her lit cigarette on a marble slab 150 feet above the rotunda inside the Kansas State House, then mounted a nearby ledge and leapt to her death.
Nice.
Supposedly, McLean's ghost is in the area where she landed and in the basement area where the sound of unexplained footsteps and crying can be heard. You know what? I would investigate that. That actually sounds like a really good investigation. It'd be a good one to get video on.
They would let us.
I don't
That
know.
would be great.
I'm
It would be
surprised
great.
you can hear footsteps and not a splat.
Ew.
That just
I
brought
don't think
back
you walked around after that.
unpleasant memories. I know that sound. The State House is also said to be haunted by the spirit of a worker accidentally killed in a fall while helping to build it as his payday approached near the end of the month in which he died. So that was kind of sad. Nearby resident has heard a hammering sound coming from the dome, thought to be the man's ghost working at night, and hopes he'll be able to finish his job and collect his paycheck.
Huh.
I don't know. I've got a few more here and there, but we'll split them up. Somebody got something else they want to try.
Who's going next?
Done.
Go, Jess.
Wow, everybody just jump in.
I need a spinner. I need to get one of those spinner boards.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna step away from like the online stories and tell kind of a personal story wrapped up in some stuff I found online.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So first, I have been working on The Messengers, and it's by Mike Cleland. And for those of you who don't know, he is the guru on owls and what they have to do with aliens and UFOs and that entire the synchronicities and the abductees, and it's super interesting. I'm almost done with this one. I'm getting ready to start the second one. He has a second one. But unfortunately, for those of you who know me, know that when I dive too deep into these things, weird synchronicities start happening. And unfortunately, I have been living the week of owls. So I brought this in. You see that this is where I started. And ever since I started this, I have been inundated with owl imagery and owls popping up here and there. Actually, the worst one was, I think it was Wednesday, I believe. Wednesday, I had just finished a very big chapter in this book. I got up online just to scroll through my Facebook wall, and the first thing on there was a Reddit thread from this kid who had like 1 billion owl stories, which I will read to you here in a minute.
A
And
billion?
I was like,
That's going to take a while.
It is. It's going to be a good long show, so stick in there with me.
That'll be a good one.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I read through it and I was like, man, a lot of these stories are very similar to things that have happened to me because I've had a lot of incidences with owls throughout my life, even before I knew kind of what some of that meant. But I put all that down and I decided to flip on my DVR because I had some new shows pop on this week that I had been wanting to see. Resident Alien came back on this week.
Oh,
I was
sweet.
super excited.
I like that show.
Nice.
The first episode was about owls.
Really.
Woohoo!
Stemming back for any of y'all's who've watched before, we've actually talked about Resident Alien a number of times because whoever writes it actually knows their theories and they bring in all of this stuff that we always talk about as a part of the show. And it drives my husband nuts because I can predict what's getting ready to happen. Anywho, so I was just like, oh, they did a show on owls. How serendipitous. And then I was scrolling down my DVR and young Sheldon started not young Sheldon, excuse me. Ghosts started back in this week. NBC's Ghosts, which I love. And that one was on owls too.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Cool. I didn't even realize either one of them started back up, and I like both of them, so I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was
talking about. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jess.
No, go for it.
I'm going to say, talking about owls, I've seen a ton of them out here.
Yeah.
Like in the last week. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving to work, early in the morning, 5:40, 5:45. And I had one just standing in the road, just watch me come up the road. And I thought he was going to jump. He never jumped. I just stopped right in front of him. Then he finally hopped up. I mean, he just hopped over to the dang ditch. But yeah, I've seen a ton of them out here in the last couple of weeks. Just outside of the light. I have that bright yard light.
I can hear him say, I told you, peasant, you will not run over me.
Yeah. But yeah, he just sat there and looked at me like, what are you going to do? I don't know if he's suicidal or
Do the
figured out what you're going to do or what, or I don't know.
He pick up show off his long legs and run away.
They do have hilarious legs, don't they?
If you chase an owl, they're the weirdest looking critter. Flower the owl.
Yeah, Flower.
I
I won't.
Hilarious.
I'm not going to give spoiler alerts on that show. You all have to go watch it. So, yeah. So, touching a little bit on my history with owls. So I've always loved owls. I don't know why. But I've had some weird stuff that's happened with them. I see them all the time, but I see them during the day, which is the oddity for me.
Yeah.
Perfectly awake, like on a post sitting somewhere as I'm driving by and it'll fly off. So weird. We had an owl one night. My husband and I were coming back from Tulsa and we had a completely white owl that was so big its wingspans went past each side of our car, fly down over the top of us, and then it stayed level with our windshield as we drove, and it stayed right in front of us for quite a long time, so much so that I was having to drive like this to see underneath of its wings while Mike punched me in the shoulder like, oh my God, you see this? And I was like, yes, I see it.
Using the bow wave off your car to fly for free, yeah.
Yeah, it stayed with us for quite a while and then flew off. And there was a good year, a good solid year where Mike couldn't sleep because we had an owl that would roost in a tree outside our bedroom window. And we called it the Jeopardy owl because it would hoot all night, but it sounded like the little tone it made when the stuff would jumble on Jeopardy. It would go do 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 like that. And Mike's favorite joke was, I'll take some sleep for 500, Alex, because it would just
Levi said that's no longer an owl, that's a griffin. that makes me think of the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, where they got the frog, hello my honey, hello. I can see the owl doing that.
Yeah. right outside the window. I mean, if you opened up the blinds, it was right there staring at you, which is apparently not a great thing. Now that I'm reading this,
Huh.
that this thing sat outside of our window every night. That's not good.
Wow.
It makes me wish that I had accounted for time a little bit better back then and see if there had been missing time
Yeah.
a lot of
Let me
nights.
tell you.
Not good. The scariest one that's ever happened to me, I've actually had a scary moment with an owl. Scared the absolute bejesus out of me. My family owns several properties, and a couple of them have empty houses on them or houses that are just used for storage. And we had gone to check on one of these, and my mom came back out and said, "Get some gloves and stuff. There is a huge owl in the house." We never quite figured out where it got in at. Could have been up underneath an eave. We didn't look too hard. Like I said, it was just it's an unlivable house. But we had both gone in, and it had swooped and flown to the front of this house, and it had a closed, like a porch, like an enclosed porch with a lot of windows. And my mom shouted at me. She was like, "You go outside and go around to the front and see if you can see which set of windows it's in. And then we can kind of trap it to that area and then push it out the front door." So I ran around to the front and got up in front of the windows, and it was literally right there staring back at me. And it was one of the most visceral things I've ever felt in my life, because it looked me right in the eyes. And it looked at me right in the eyes. It wasn't like a vacant animal stare. It wasn't like a loving stare like you would get from like a dog. This was, I about fell over, stumbling, trying to get away from the windows.
Ugh.
My heart was pounding. It was the weirdest reaction I've ever had to an animal looking back at me. And I went in and told her where it was, and I noped out of there. I was like, "You got this.
Yeah.
I'm going that way."
So
let me know when
she
you're
did.
done.
She ended up getting it by its legs, and
Oh,
she
yeah.
flipped it upside down so it got disoriented and
Like a
hauled
chicken.
it out and
Yeah.
and let it go. But I mean, I couldn't hardly breathe, and I spent like a week thinking about that. Like, why did it make me
So
feel like that?
that makes me wonder, was this before all these other owl issues, I should say?
No, it wasn't before. It was in
No.
between all of that.
Huh. I was just kind
Yeah.
of thinking, maybe if that was like, because I know crows will remember people.
Mm-hmm.
They're so intelligent that if somebody does something to them or whatever, the other crows will remember who that person is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering if maybe if the owls are like that, and this whatever, somehow, some way knew you or
Well, I don't. All I know was that whatever was looking at me knew what it was doing.
huh.
Like there was a reason behind it looking. It looked at me deeply.
Staring into your soul.
That's what it felt like. I felt like it was almost as if like another human was looking back at me.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was just, it took my breath away. Like you wanted to break out in a sweat. I stumbled trying to get back away from it because it just,
Wow.
it's one of the weirdest, that experience and the experience of the owl floating and kind of flying in front of the car. The oddity about that experience, the car one is later on when I thought about it, I realized I never saw it flap its wings except for when it took off away from us.
Huh.
That actually makes sense. Because
But it
with that,
stayed with us. I
with
mean,
that
we were
big wing,
going like 65
yeah,
on the
it
highway
was using the bow wave off of your car and using its wings to catch it and riding it. Like
in front of
surfing.
our car.
It was surfing you. Yeah, he's exactly it.
Okay.
Did you ever see birds will fly right at your windshield and then flare their wings to get over you because they're using your own air off the front of your car to push them over the top?
Hitchhiking. Huh.
What happened
Okay.
was the one that you hit. They weren't fast enough, apparently.
Apparently not.
Enzo said he was once at a wildlife recovery center said they had a great horned owl that had gotten poisoned and its eyes were dilated, so they looked like black orbs, black lifeless eyes, like a
That's
doll's eyes.
creepy.
Ew. Creepy.
Yep.
That is creepy.
That's owl person.
So that's not all my owl stories, but the other ones are just little incident. They've just been a part of my life since I was little. And my family always thought it was a little janky because a portion of my family are Native American. I'm Blackfoot. And most Indian tribes have a very anti-owl thing. And I was made fun of because I loved owls. They were like, why are you messing with the owls? Don't mess with owls.
So what's the
know.
reason? What do you know the reasoning behind that? Why they're
Most tribes consider owls kind of that passage into the dead.
gotcha.
It's almost like a crow, like how the European countries believe that crows take
Mhm.
souls over. It's kind of the same thing, only
It's a nighttime
owls.
predator, and
Mhm.
yeah, I get it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
They're kind of they're that being that can shift in between both of those, and they take souls over, kind of a thing. So they consider them bad luck. If you see one, it means somebody you or someone you know or you love is gonna probably pass. They're like a harbinger.
I see.
Enzo said on Reservation Dogs they'd pixelate out the owls on the show. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's why I like that show.
I've
Oh,
never
wow.
watched it. I've kind of wanted to watch. I
Yeah.
don't even know what channel it's
You
on.
need to. It's really good.
Hey,
Yeah.
did you guys see that somebody on Facebook solved the alien abduction question? Yeah, somebody figured it out. I got to show you. It's self-explanatory. Say,
Oh yeah.
You sent us unsolicited news, mixtape, and directions to your house. I mean,
Hey Sylvian, he may be on. He might be on the Fringe YouTube channel. We're going to be switching
Yeah.
pretty soon to strictly on the Fringe from YouTube. So he may be on there already. Oh, let me get this done. Man, I like forgot what I'm doing here.
I tell you what, it's
But-
been the last couple of weeks has been issues. So
Yeah, it has.
yeah.
No, the owls fascinate me though. I mean,
I know. So I saved that Reddit thread that had popped up on my page that day. And I thought, I'm not going to tell you all of this dude's stories because there's a few of them, but there's a few really interesting ones that I thought were pretty great on here, and they're pretty short. So I'm just kind of read them out and let you all see what you think.
Okay.
So this is, what's his handle? The capital THE lower dash Lodge, Loge. I'm not sure. And this was posted on a paranormal thread. So it says, one night when I was about 3 or 4 years old, my sister had went out on a date with this guy named Jeff. I was playing with Tonka trucks in our kitchen. In our kitchen, there was a door that exited out into our garage. We never kept cars in the garage, but always just used it for storage, so the garage door was never open. I clearly remember seeing an owl staring at me through one of these 3 vertically stacked. So there was 3 panes of glass in each side of the door. Roughly 1 foot square windows in our kitchen door to the garage. From my recollection, it seems as though the head of the owl completely filled the 1 foot square window. I was terrified and ran into the living room to tell my dad. I told him an owl was looking at me and asked him if he would go get my trucks. He obliged and then searched the garage. He didn't find an owl or any openings that would allow an owl to enter or exit the garage. He chalked it up to toddlers being overactive, having an overactive imagination, and went back to doing what he was doing. About 30 minutes later, after that happened, my sister and her date returned home visibly shaken. When my parents asked them what was wrong, they told us that they had been out driving in Spooky Hollow, a haunted area near the area where they live in central Indiana, when a large owl swooped down at the truck they were in, nearly crashing into the windshield and causing them to careen off the dirt road and into a ditch. After they shared their experience, my folks asked them what time the incident occurred, and they said, "Oh, about a half an hour ago." My parents told them about me seeing the owl, and they were stunned by the coincidence. According to my parents, my sister asked me how I knew this about the owl, and I had replied rather strangely, "Because I'm a knower, sis." He doesn't remember saying that.
That's
It's
odd.
kind of weird.
That is really weird.
Yeah.
That makes me think, he's got some past life stuff going on there. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Coincidence.
again, see, there's that there's the toddler, the young child. They chalk it, dad did what parents do. They chalk it up to, oh, it's just your imagination. That's
training the child to no longer
exactly,
look for it.
Mhm.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I really think the veil is thinner for kids. Definitely.
It is.
Kids and
I
dogs.
just think it's because they haven't been taught yet
Right.
that stuff is wrong, or
Mhm.
that
Right.
no, you don't see that stuff. They
Right.
just see what they see.
Mhm.
And obviously parents are trying to be well-meaning, and
Yeah.
not, let their kids be scared of the dark or
Yeah.
whatever the case.
It's a fine line you tread.
It is.
My daughter saw and heard things when she was younger, and I never wanted to be the mom that poo-pooed that, because I had that happen to me when I was little. "Oh, you're just imagining things," or you saw what was a shadow and it wasn't anything scary, blah 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 blah. And you
Right.
feel discredited, and you feel like after a while you can't tell anybody about what you see, so then you're stuck being scared by yourself. So I never wanted to be that mom, but you also don't want to scare them.
Right.
Right.
So you tread this really fine line of, how do I say, yes, whatever it was you saw was probably real, but how do I make it so it's not so scary? It's hard, hard
Right. It
to
is.
deal with.
That's well,
Oh,
I mean, Caleb, he's 9, because we finally got him to sleep upstairs all night. And he's like, I said, there's nothing to be scared of, and he said, well, I'm not scared of the dark. He said, I'm scared of what's in the dark, but he'll play tricks on his little sister, like he told her one time he saw a big eye in one of the windows, so I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
I'm trying to temper it a little bit. I'm trying not to discount what they say, but to me, that kind of went a little overboard. Just a giant eye in the window. I'm like, no, and I got to explain to my daughter, who's 6. I'm like, no, he didn't, I promise,
What games does he play? Do they have beholders in them?
no,
No. Okay, just
No.
checking.
no, but
A little
yeah,
D&D.
so that,
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna tell just a couple more of these little quick
Okay.
stories here, and then I'll move on to somebody else. So his second one is about his a previous manager he had at a job. He says she was a very buttoned down, devout Catholic. So she remembers being woken up by an owl looking through her bedroom window when she was a child many, many times. Her sisters had the same experience. She also said one time her mother walked by her room as a child, and when she looked in her eyes, they were glowing red.
wow.
Her nor
Ew.
her mother ever mentioned this incident to their family after it happened. She cried when she told me this, and typing it still gives me chills for some reason.
Weird.
So
The last manager he had at his previous job before told me a story about her son. He is in his mid to late 30s now and still swears that this happened exactly as described. He was supposed to be home at midnight when he was 16 or 17. He was on his way home on a dirt road in our county, when he came across a large owl in the middle of the road. It wouldn't get out of the way. The last thing he remembers is stopping the car. The next thing he knows, he is driving again, and it's 2:30 a.m. He got home much later than expected, and his parents read him the riot act. He still swears by this story 20 years later.
Wow.
So are there aliens that are masquerading
Aliens.
as owls to?
A lot of the stories
That's
in this
weird.
book are like that.
So are owls
and-
aliens?
Yeah, in fact, this last story is nearly kind of the same. So he said, a friend of mine, upon finding out about my owl story, told me his. In his late teens, early 20s, he was a heavy partier. He was on his way to a party and was supposed to be there by 9 p.m. On a dirt road in our county, he came across a 2-foot owl in the middle of the road that wouldn't move. He stopped and got out of the car, and the next thing he remembers is showing up to the party, only to find all of his friends asleep. He woke them up, and they were ticked he didn't show up to the party with the alcohol he was supposed to bring. So it was much, much later.
So I'm glad I didn't get out of the truck when that one was in front of the truck.
No kidding.
Yeah, you could have had a real
Could have been
problem.
late to work.
Yeah.
Just tell them it was aliens, boss.
Yeah.
It was aliens. They kidnapped me. I don't remember anything, but I may have been probed.
Right. I'm walking funny.
I'm Tinder. What is that?
Right.
God, it's getting worse.
Going back to the previous story about the red eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that reminded me of a story my cousin told me. Her dad, my uncle, obviously, he passed away, I want to say in 97, something like that. He had brain cancer.
Mm.
But she was telling me him and my aunt had gotten into a big fight one night. And he walked out of the house and went for a walk. And a set of like blazing red eyes started following him. So I'm like, man, I wonder, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty creepy. But somebody else was there and they're like, no, I've seen him too. I don't know if it'd be a demonic thing or what. But I just found it odd that there was other people that had experienced that as well. But that story just reminded me of that. It was kind of creepy. So
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I thought they were interesting. A lot of them had a lot to do with what I've been reading and kind of similar to some of the things that had happened to me. So in my big weird week of synchronicities involving owls, and I'm sure it's not over with yet.
It's only what is it? It's only Monday.
Freak me out when they happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was just talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're synchronicities.
Yeah.
Welcome to Just Land.
Pretty interesting.
I was going to ask you, why is all the weird stuff always happen when you're coming home from Tulsa?
Well,
ideas, but
backstory on Jess. So Jess's husband, Mike, is a drummer and a studio drummer. And he has been for the last 20 plus years. And he did a lot of work for Yellow Dog Studios down in Tulsa. And his band, No One Slave, were the openers for a couple of years at the Canes Ballroom. So if when the big shows came in, like Flyleaf and stuff like that, that was the band that opened for them. Mike's band opened for them.
Oh, cool.
And I was always with him. I would run the merch table and would run photos, video, and stuff like that. So by the time those showcases and stuff and those big concerts are over with, or he was done working at Yellow Dog for the night, it would be like 1 or 2 in the morning driving back from Tulsa. Or even if he was just working in the studio that day, they had a studio down at Skiatook, Oklahoma. Okay. So we were always perennially on our way back from Tulsa. So that's why. And well, for anybody who lives around here, if you need anything, you end up in Birtlesville.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm always on this strip of 75. Back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. So a lot of stuff happens to me there. That's why a good portion of my stories has some story about coming back from Tulsa or coming back from Burnsville. Because I always was.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
What you got,
Yep.
Pam?
Well, I kind of went down this funky little rabbit hole. I started out with running across something about Roger Ebert, which was Siskel and Ebert from back in the day. I'm showing my age probably, of the guys that used to be the movie critics. And Roger Ebert was a well-known atheist and didn't believe in God, didn't believe in the afterlife, anything like that. And I kind of stumbled across this article, actually. It was in Esquire back in 2013. Tell me how I ended up there. I don't know. But it was an interview with his wife after he passed away. And Roger had passed away from, I think he had, was it jaw cancer or throat cancer, one or the other. He lost the majority of the lower portion of his face. And he had beat it, and he was doing okay until he wasn't. And, and then it kind of, they found out his cancer came back and it was worse. He couldn't speak anymore. So he did a lot of writing notes to his wife. And after he passed, Esquire had done this interview with her, and they were and she was telling them what his last words to her were. And it just really caught my attention. What she told them was, like, the week before Roger had passed away, she would be with him, and he wrote notes. So he would talk about having visited this other place, and she thought he was hallucinating. She thought maybe the doctors were giving him too much medication. They weren't, she was just kind of like, kind of playing along with it, with a little bit of concern. And then, but the day before he passed away, he wrote her a note that said, "This is all an elaborate hoax." And so she was like, "What is a hoax? What are you talking about?" And he said he was talking about this world, this place that we are in now. It's all an illusion. And so she was thinking maybe he was just confused. But then she realized, no, he's not confused. He wasn't visiting heaven, or at least not the way that we think of heaven. He was describing it as a vastness that you cannot even imagine. The direct quote was, "It was a place where the past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same time." And I, that caught my interest. I thought that was really pretty wild, which led me down another path of, some interesting last words from people, be they famous or not, because you can, I think, glean a little bit of knowledge, from people that are at the end of their life. So I was just going to run through a few of the favorites that I found. Okay. Bob Marley, and I did not realize he was 36 years old when he died. I don't know why I didn't realize he was so young. The last thing he said was, "Money can't buy life." And I really liked that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
It is. Let me find another one here. Oh, I like this. Joan Crawford. They called it her parting shot. She aimed this at her housekeeper, who, when she realized that Joan was dying, she started to pray aloud for her. And she said, "Damn it, don't you dare ask God to help me." I think she was ready to go. Winston Churchill, well, "I'm bored with it all." That's what he said. Oh, and this one, Queen Elizabeth I, "All my possessions for just one more moment of time." So it's, again,
Yep,
that's pithy.
Time over money. Hang on, let me see here. Oh, Leonard Nimoy, which I love. "Life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved except in memory." And I think he put this on Twitter just a couple of days before he died. And he put LLAP, which is live long and prosper. So I thought that was cool. And then I kind of went from there into I ran across what Steve Jobs, the Apple dude, basically, before he died, he what did he had colon cancer, didn't he?
Something, yeah.
And he
Something like
he
that, yeah.
didn't want to do conventional treatments, and then he sorely regretted that at the end, I think. But I guess right before he died, he looked at his sister Patty, and then looked a long time at his children, and then at his partner Lorraine, and then he looked over their shoulders, and his final words were, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow," and then he died. And I thought that was pretty cool because Thomas Edison kind of did the same thing. When he died, he was in a coma, and he emerged from his coma. He opened his eyes, he looked upwards, and he said, "It's very beautiful over there." And then he died. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
These are people that weren't hugely religious people that are saying things like that. So I thought it was cool.
A lot of
Yeah.
people claim to see their loved ones standing next to them that has gone
Yes,
before.
Yep.
there's a
Seems
whole
like
bunch of stories about that.
yeah, it seems like it's pretty standard to
Mhm.
help them cross or whatever.
It is.
Um,
There's a couple of death row inmates as they were being electrocuted. This one, it really cracked me up. This is morbid, but it's the only execution by electric chair in the United States in the year 1966. It was a dude named James French. He was sentenced to life sentence for the murder he committed in 1958. He had been hitchhiking, and he killed the motorist that picked him up. So during his incarceration, he really thought about suicide, but he was too chicken to do it himself. So what he did was he went and killed his cellmate, so the state of Oklahoma would go ahead and execute him.
right.
And so a few moments before they flipped the switch, he yelled at the press, "How's this for your headline? French fries." Like,
Oh my
we went out on that.
Yeah, that there was something obviously wrong with that guy.
No kidding.
Wow.
And then there was a dude, his name was George Apple. He was a convicted first-degree murderer. He killed a police officer in New York City. And this was in like 1928. They sentenced him to death, and he was electrocuted as well. And his final words were, "Well, gentlemen, you're about to see a baked apple."
Oh wow.
Oh no!
Oh.
I mean,
Wah, wah.
what you already know you're done. I mean, I guess what do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess crack a joke on your way out.
I guess.
Wow.
And those are, and like Mark, you were saying that a lot of people see their relatives or speak to their relatives when they're dying. There was some Reddit users that had posted on a subreddit, and it was asking people that in the medical field that worked with people that were dying, if what was some strange or interesting things that they heard from their patients. And this lady, she had a patient, his memory had been fading for years. He had dementia, and he thought she was his late wife. So she was playing along, just listened to him, and he talked about their life together and their engagement and their wedding, their children, and all these things. And then he was like, "Oh, Irene, there you are." And he turns to the nurse, excuse me. And he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't see that well anymore. But thanks for listening to me tell my stories. I hope you have some great ones to tell one day too. I'm coming, honey. I'm coming, Irene." And then he passed away. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is.
That reminds me, have you guys ever heard that story about the hospice nurse and the black shadow thing that followed her patient around? Have you? I don't
No, I
think we've
don't
ever
think
told
I
that story
have.
in here.
I think I
It's-
have, but I'm not sure.
It's one of the scariest things I've ever heard. I don't know. Okay, so I'll just kind of reiterate it as the best I remember it. So it was this lady who had started working in a hospice, and one of her patients was this older lady she'd had cancer and a whole bunch of other things, and she was just barely hanging on. And she was a little delusional. She was so ill. She would just kind of yabber on. So this lady would sit with her in times when she wasn't doing anything, just to give her some company, because she never had any family that would ever come and visit. And she started noticing this black shadow that would hang out in the corner of the room. and it would get closer and closer to the bed until she would stand up to kind of, and would acknowledge the fact that it was there, and it would shrink back into the corner again. Or sometimes she would see it floating above the bed. And it became her like mission in life to stay in that room as much as possible to keep this shadow thing away. Cause she like had it in her head. She was like, no, I'm not going to let you do this to her, to this nice, kind lady. And one night she was working the ward with one other woman, and she was playing this game all night long, keeping the shadow at bay. And she left the room, and she flipped the lights on before she left so it couldn't be in there with her. And she ran into this other older nurse that she was working with that night. And that nurse stopped her in the middle of the hallway and kind of just got up in her face and said, "You need to let her go." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "You need to let her go. She was not a good lady. She was not a good lady. You let her go." And it scared her a little bit. And she ran off and got some coffee and stuff and came back. And when she came back, that dark shadow was still sitting in the room, even with the lights on. And she said she just kind of knew right then and there she needed to let this go. So she whispered something to the lady, goodbye or whatever, flipped the lights off and walked away. And the lady flatlined in like 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the interesting thing is that she helped the other nurse get her paperwork ready and stuff. And she was like, "How did you know that lady was going to go?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" She was like, "How did you know? You came and told me that she was going to go. It was time for me to let her go." And she was like, "Honey, I've been in the other ward all night. I haven't been over here." And that's freaking her out. And they were going through the paperwork, and she found some of her history in there, and she was not a good lady. She had been accused of killing her husband, but was never taken down for it. And she had no family to come and visit her because she was just a terrible person.
Wow.
And her kids didn't have anything to do with her. So now she wonders if that black shadow thing went and took over that nurse's body, or doppelganger somehow.
Yeah.
To get her to convince her to go ahead and let it take her.
Wow.
We should do a show just on doppelgangers, though.
That would be a good one.
Oh,
Doppelganger mimics.
There's tons of stories out there with hospice nurses and stuff like that watching people cross, and there's just tons of stories of supernatural events. Pam, one of your stories reminded me. Are you finished?
Oh, I got one more.
Okay, go for it.
Coming on the tails of what Jess was talking about. There's a chaplain. He worked in the hospital for a long time, and there was a patient. He was non-religious, but he still had a good connection with him. And he asked the chaplain to come to his room, and when he did, he motioned for him to crouch down, and he was like, "Do you see my brother in the corner?" And the chaplain's like, "No, but I believe you." He was completely lucid. He was talking calmly. He didn't have any reason not to believe him. And he said that he'd been talking to his brother, and they'd been hashing out some hard feelings they had before his brother passed, and had come to forgiveness of each other and all that good stuff. But he didn't want to tell the nurses this because he was scared they would think he was crazy and that they would just try to medicate him. And, the chaplain's like, "No, I believe you. Just want to listen, just tell me about it, and the patient went on to say, "I see death too. She was in the parking lot. I could see her from my window. She had my brother with her. Now she's in the room and she's all black, but she ain't ugly." And he was totally at peace, and he died shortly after that.
All right.
Wow.
I am going to hopefully not break down when I tell this story. It's very personal to me. My grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's, and she had forgot who exactly my grandfather was at one point. And she was pretty far gone. It got better for a while, straightened out her meds, but when she was in the nursing home, a few days before she passed away, she told one of the nurses, who happens to be a cousin, when it confused her because she couldn't figure out, she thought she was just rambling on. She goes, "My father has prepared a place for me, but they won't let me go." And so it wasn't until weeks later when we put it all together what she was talking about. So
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
I'm telling you, I don't know what it is for sure. There's something. I don't think we end when we die. I don't.
Yep.
There's something out there. There's too much. We've ran into it. Just ghost hunting and everything else, for there not to be.
Yep. What I was saying before, Pam, is one of your stories reminded me of a story I'd heard last week. I've been really diving into biblical prophecy and stuff like that.
Mm.
And Jonathan Cahn, I mentioned him on here. He does The Harbinger 1 and 2, Return of the Gods, and stuff will blow your mind. Coincidence or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't believe in coincidence, especially after going down the roads we've been down on this show in the last 3 years. I don't believe an ounce in coincidence. But I was watching him on YouTube, and I'm not poking, I'm not prodding at anybody. This is, I mean, you live your life how you choose. But the day in December, I can't remember. Let's see what this article says, and I found it on here. But the day that the Pope, it was his birthday last year in December. The same day he was going to pass his decree to start blessing homosexual couples. And I want to share this real quick because the Pope is supposed to sit in St. Peter's office. That's what they call it, Peter's office. And in Buenos Aires, or Aires, is where the Pope is from. This happened, and I'll show you. Lightning struck the statue of St. Peter. And the halo, as you can see here, this is afterwards. The halo was knocked off. The keys to the kingdom, Peter was given the keys to the kingdom, was blown away. I don't know if I can zoom in.
Yeah, blew his hand clear off.
Blew the hand off. And what he's saying, the significance of this is, okay, the halo represents access to God. Right? The keys of the kingdom, okay, another access to God. The right hand in the Catholic Church, I'm not Catholic, so if I'm wrong, well, forgive me, and we'll go from there. But in the Catholic religion, to give blessings, it's always by the right hand, and that's biblical. I can't remember this happened. I can't remember who it was. I had to go back and watch it. But there's a Bible story about a king in the Bible. I can't remember who it was. Herod? I don't remember. But he was trying to call a curse down on Israel, and he went to put his hand out, and God struck it with lightning. And the significance about this is there are lightning rods all around the statue to prevent it from being struck by lightning. But it hit the statue. So I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But yeah, I found that pretty interesting. So
that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I found it kind of crazy. And do you guys mind if I go ahead and share the other one I brought?
No, go ahead.
No,
I found it interesting. Again, like I said, I've been going down this road of biblical prophecy. And Revelation 12, right, says, and I beheld, everybody knows Revelation, the end of the world prophecies, all that, right? It said, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. All right. Now, in the past, I've always really been interested in biblical prophecy for a long time. And they talk blood moons and stuff like that. All the big time evangelists and all that talk blood moons. John Hagee was one. He wrote a book on like the 4 blood moons. I want to say in 13 there were significance. But this struck my interest when I heard it last week. And I'll share this. The moon is rusting. and they're trying to explain how the moon is rusting. And well, everybody knows rust is red, right? But the
Right.
etymology of the word hematite, because they're saying it's hematite on the moon, they didn't realize it was there. But the etymology is Greek. Let's see, where'd it go? Yeah, the name hematite is derived from the Greek word for blood, haema, right? Due to the red coloration found in some varieties of hematite. But I got to reading, I was like, man, this is kind of crazy, you know. And you guys know how I think. I'm like, you know, could this be part of that prophecy coming to pass? I mean, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, that's up to you. I'm not trying to push anything on anybody. I'm like, I wonder if it's going to continue doing this until that time. You know, personally, I believe in prophecy. There's so many different examples of things coming to pass, but I found it extremely interesting. I'm like, you know, maybe not the blood moon, but what if this is part of that? You know, part of that whole prophecy or whatever. Because I mean, if you dig into it, there's things happening. You know, days of Manoah and all that. I'm not a huge biblical scholar or whatever, but I don't know. It just struck my interest, and I'm like, yeah, that, maybe I don't know. You know, so that's kind of all I've got.
No, but I had no clue that the moon was rusting. That's
I didn't either.
I didn't either.
I'd never heard of that.
the
It's
flat
crazy.
earthers are going to love that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
on
they're-
NASA too, wasn't it?
What's
means
that?
That was on NASA too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. They're
Yeah.
saying they think it's due to the Earth. They think the Earth is causing it. Like it only happens during a full moon where the Earth and the sun or Earth and the moon are aligned, and the solar winds hit the Earth and drive the oxygen and somehow, some way, moisture to the moon to cause this to rust. Because they're saying right now it's on top of the craters where they thought it would be opposite down in the lower end, the bottom parts of the craters, but it's on the edges of the craters right now where all this stuff's rusting. I was like, man, that's kind of weird. So
That
I don't know.
That is weird. So it makes you
Wow.
wonder how long it takes for something to rust on the moon.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
weird.
especially when there's little to no atmosphere.
Yeah, because you have to have certain things in play for rust to occur. So
Right.
Right.
oxygen.
That's
And
crazy.
I don't know. Food for thought.
Wow.
interesting.
I guess congratulations are in order for Texas, by the way.
What's up
You
with
see
Texas?
that?
God, what they do.
Why?
Texas has been dubbed the most haunted state in the United States in 2023.
Oh, it's better
Well, they
than
got
what
the
they
most
could have done.
land, so
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, except for Alaska, but who knows in Alaska? That's all full of cryptids. There's no people up there.
yeah. But Alaska is very much less populated.
Mhm.
That is
So-
I heard
true.
Less people to see the ghosts.
yeah. I heard a story one time from Alaska. This guy, he was a hunter, I think. It's been several years since I've heard the story, but he come across a Bigfoot and Dogman fighting.
Oh,
mean,
I would
was it
pay to
territorial
watch that.
dispute? What was it? I mean, that's kind of a cool
That's pretty
story.
wild.
Yeah, this is kind of when I started getting into Dogman and trying to understand what it is, this thing, you know, and
That
but
makes
it's
me
been
think of
several years ago.
what was that show where they used to match beasts against each other, like a dinosaur against a giant
Oh,
bear, you know, a grizzly
that
bear.
sounds
type
vaguely
thing.
familiar, but I
Deathmatch.
Yeah. Huh?
Deathmatch. Was it on Cartoon Network?
No, it was
It was on
on like
Discovery or something.
Discovery or History or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know what
But
you're
they would
talking
go
about. I don't remember
through
the name.
yeah, how to that makes me think of something like that.
Yeah.
Except did wise. That's pretty wild. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
weird.
All right. Well,
mean,
what are you
Go
gonna
ahead.
say?
no,
I was gonna just move on with something else.
Okay.
So I have a job for you guys and everybody at home. So for all you that don't know, I have been for the last 10 years I have been taking down stories of all different kinds of paranormal things that happen in our 4 states area, and I have been mapping them. And I have been currently, when I have little bits of time, I've been going down through and getting some time slips and some dimensional stuff written down, stories that I found. And while I've been working on this, I've been going through some old paperwork trying to get it logged into the computer. And I found a story I had completely forgotten about. I love this story. It's so amazing. But the reason why it hasn't ever been logged is because I don't know how to log it. So I'm going to read the story to you guys. And then I want everybody to let me know under what field it should be. Because this is some nutty sauce. This is 12 kinds of weird. So I'm going to read it to you. So this happened back in the year... It happened in 2000 in central Oklahoma, in between the two towns of Shawnee and Brooksville.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to read it to you. And this is a firsthand account that I've had written down. We'll just see where this takes us. So it says, it happened in early 2000 when I was working at a juvenile detention center in a small town in Oklahoma as a corrections officer. I was working nights at the time and went to work at 9 p.m. This one night, when I arrived for work, my supervisor looked confused and asked me what I was doing there. I said, well, I work tonight. And he said, but they said that you called in just a few hours ago saying that you were sick. I was a little bit confused and said, well, it must have been somebody else. And they got the message wrong. After everyone else showed up for work that night, I looked at the message that said I had called in. It said that I had called at 6:50 and said that I had gotten sick while out cleaning up after the storm. There had been a storm the night before, and it was a bit bad, but not anything that I had to go out and clean up. It was truly weird. The supervisor came into the control about that time. He was also a friend of mine outside of work, and we started talking about it and how odd it was. I decided to call my wife at home and tell her about it while he was still sitting there with me. I picked up the phone and dialed. After 2 rings, a man picked up the phone and with a raspy voice said, "Hello?" I did not know what to say for a few seconds. I looked at the phone to make sure I had dialed the right number, and I had. After a few seconds, the person said, "Hello?" again, and in the same raspy voice. I said, "Hello, who is this?" And it said back, "This is Taylor. Who is this?" My head started spinning because my name is Taylor. I said in almost a scream, "Where is Anne?" He said, "Anne is in bed. Who is this?" I dropped the phone and told my supervisor to ring me out. I had to get home, and I took off towards the door. I could hear Dave pick up the phone behind me and say hello, followed soon after by, "What the heck?" rather loudly. I ran to my car and drove home faster than what was legal, my mind racing the entire time. I busted through the door, and my wife was sitting, watching TV, and was shocked at me being home. I asked her who was there, and she said no one had been there. After a rather long talk with my wife, I went to call the prison to tell them what was going on, but the phone was dead. I went back to work, and when I came in, Dave was acting weird and asked me, "How the hell are you doing this?" He told me that when I left, he picked up the phone, and the person on the other end sounded just like me. He kind of freaked out and hung up the phone. A minute later, as he could see my car leaving the parking lot, I had called back from home and asked what was going on. He said that I was a bit irate and said I was sick and did not feel like playing these games and was telling him to stop prank calling and hung up. After convincing him I had no idea what was going on, we went back to work. Later, I found out that the phone line for my area had been knocked down the night before by the storm. This is absolutely the strangest thing that has ever happened to me.
Wow.
There
How
was
do
some
you?
serious dimensional wackadoodle going on right there.
I
Is it
know, but how did
dimensional?
I
Is it
found
a-
it originally because it was listed as a time slip.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
not
I
a
don't think it's a
dimensional
time
slip.
slip.
that's a
I think it's a
dimensional
dimensional
thing,
slip.
and it's related to the phone line into the other dimension. The phone line was intact to the other dimension, but not in this one. So somehow the signal jumped dimensions.
I don't know, but he talked to himself
Right.
That freaked me
in
out.
the.
yeah. I mean, everything that we've ever heard, you can't talk to yourself. So that kind of threw that theory out because apparently you
Like it's
can.
almost like there was a thin spot between two parallels where he both existed in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Just
the
slightly
The
different.
storm
phone
happened in
line,
both.
like the phone line was their connection to each other. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I have no idea how to list this.
That sounds like an entirely new category.
I don't
That'd be the
know.
easiest.
Just
know what
make
that
it a new
was?
category.
Phone care
That was
category.
that was quantum freaking entanglement with the phone lines.
Yeah,
It's exactly what it had to be.
that would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. And the fact that the phone lines were down on his side.
Yeah,
I would
that's
put it
weird.
under quantum entanglement.
So, okay, so my question would be if there was a storm the night before and he didn't know the phone lines were down at his house until he was already at work. So obviously they weren't down from the storm. Or were they? I don't know.
I don't
Oh.
That
Because when you said that they were it was dead when he got home, it made me think of something that was like mimicking him, you know, saying it was him and had taken out the phone line, but I don't know.
either.
I mean, did he recognize it as being himself? I missed that part. I don't think he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
He did recognize it as being himself.
He didn't recognize it at first because it was so raspy, because
Yeah.
him on this other side was absolutely sick.
But
But
he's
when
positive.
when the sick guy started getting concerned because he was asking these janky questions and he started yelling when he asked
Then he knew
about
it was him.
the wife. And then his worker friend or whatever told him that, he picked up the phone as soon as he dropped it and talked to the guy and was like, "How are you doing this? It was you."
Yeah,
And
that's
then
crazy.
he called back as he was leaving the parking lot and it was him.
So was that the end of it?
That's the end of it.
That's the end of it.
That's
So
the
it
end
didn't
of
continue after that. It was just that one situation.
that one incident. I think he went back to work and then everything was fine. So it's one of the
Maybe
strangest ones I have.
Maybe the storm they said was pretty bad. It may have been high EMFs or something too.
Making the veil between the universes thin. Maybe so.
That's crazy. That's a crazy one. That's got me
Yeah.
scratching my head.
I can't find it anymore. It originally came off of a post put up by a page called fascinate.com. It was called People Reveal the Most Haunting Unsolved Mysteries of Their Lives. And it was a contributor called Crow Horse. I couldn't find anything else from this dude. So it was like a one-off thing, which actually kind of lends some credibility for me. I feel like if he posted a lot of this stuff, I think this was like a one time he was like, "Ooh, this is an outlet where I can get this freakiness off my chest and then walk away from it." So,
that's absolutely bizarre.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's some of the weirdness I run into when I'm getting all this stuff logged in. Some of it I can't, where you stick it, it'll probably end up in some kind of like a poopery section or strange tales I can't identify, or I don't know.
Miscellaneous.
It's kind of like a miscellaneous. It's like the I think we did it on the last one. I was talking about the strange out of date dude that showed up at that gas station in Missouri and asked
Yeah.
the date.
And then he poofed out.
Only his head was like the size of a freaking melon.
Yeah.
He looked human, except for his head was like super bulbous. You know, like it's kind of a time slip, but it's kind of not.
Yeah.
Because
It was
it's
kind of
not quite from here kind of thing.
yeah. I have that one under time slips, but with like question marks beside it. Like
Enzo said it's for the interdimensional shenanigans category.
Perfect.
there we go. Thank you, Enzo. I have a new
We could just
category
call it
now.
shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Oh wait,
The shenanigan. The shenaniganator.
I'm gonna have to rewatch Waiting now.
I love that movie.
Anybody who's worked in a restaurant loves that movie.
I don't think I've ever watched it.
Oh, you've got to watch it
Oh,
and
you never
know,
see it.
even though it's exaggerated, that it's probably all true and happened someplace.
That's funny.
You do not screw with the people who handle your food. That's all I'm gonna
No, definitely not. That's just dumb. That's asking for problems.
Yeah.
That's asking for strep throat.
I have seen things. I have seen things I cannot unsee. Far more frightening than anything paranormal.
Yep.
So do not piss off your server. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
People are far more scary than the paranormal is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They will do things to your food too, for sure. And smile about it when they're serving it back to you.
That's why I don't send anything back.
Nope, me either.
I will eat it. It's fine.
Yep.
Ooh.
So what else do we got?
I have this one other, and it's off the wall.
Bring it on.
We were talking about it a little bit back in the green room about something called Tell It to the Bees, and it's part of Celtic mythology. So in Celtic mythology, it was believed that bees were like messengers between the living and the dead, and it was believed that bees could pass messages from the living to the dead. Okay. So like if you had a loved one that slipped on over to the other side, the bees could give that person a message. And that's kind of where the tradition of telling the bees came from. This practice, basically what you would do when you tell the bees, you're going to inform your hive that somebody within the family has passed away, and they needed to be let known. And then they were, because they were not necessary, but the bees were believed to take part in that mourning process with the family because they were believed to be family themselves. Okay. So at that time, it was customary to drape black fabric over beehives, and that would allow the bees to mourn in privacy, and it was believed if you didn't drape the black fabric over the beehives, that bad things would happen. So there's this lady. She's actually a biologist. Her name is Margaret Warner Morley, and she wrote a book called The Honeymakers, and she talks about telling the bees in her book. And she brought up this case from Norfolk, and the bees were not informed of the death of their beekeeper. And because they weren't informed, they became sick and they stopped producing honey until the family put a black cloth over their hives. And when they did that, they formally said, your keeper has passed, and we need to let you know so that you're allowed to mourn as well. And once they did that, everything returned to normal. The bees started producing again, and everything was as it should be. This tradition, it also goes for good things. So not only are they told of deaths, they're also told of births and weddings. And it's believed if you didn't go to your hives and tell the bees, that you would bring bad luck on either that life of that child or the wedding that was taking place. And so sometimes they're like simply informed of the information, and other times it's necessary to sing to the bees in order to tell them what's happened to the family. I don't know what kind of song it is. I can only imagine.
Singing to the bees.
There you go.
Singing to the bees.
Well, wait. Do you sing it in English or do you have to sing it in bee language?
That's a good question. I have no idea. There you go. I like that. So sometimes they're simply informed, and other times it's necessary to sing it to tell them what's happened to the family. And apparently you can't just, depending on how many hives you have, you can't just tell one hive. You have to go hive to hive and tell each hive.
Enzo's the bee singer.
And so if the beekeeper dies, the eldest son of the family, he now must take the hives and actually move them to a new place. And that allows the bees to understand that something has changed, their lives have changed, and they have a new keeper now. And the way they understand that is by the hives having been moved to a new place for that new keeper. But I thought it was really kind of a cool tradition. I had never heard of it before.
No, that
seems like a lot of work.
It does seem like a lot of work, but
sounds painful.
Yeah, it could be.
Yes.
If you look at the bees as being part of your family, which in Celtic tradition they were, it just shows respect for them as part of nature, and respect as part of the family. But I thought it was kind of cool, something out of the blue. Oh yeah, unless it was me doing the singing, and there's nothing harmonious about that.
Same.
What is that? That classical, was it Flight of the Bumblebee or whatever?
Oh yeah,
play for him or whatever, something like that.
I think that'd get her riled up, though. That's a pretty crazy song.
Probably would, yeah.
Yeah.
Bees dropping like flies.
But that was my weird off the wall thing that I found, that I don't know how you would fit it into anywhere else other than Celtic tradition.
Unless they're spelling bees.
And you got to write them a note. Don't misspell it; you'll get punished.
But bees are actually pretty cool. My brother, he's got a hive, and he'll handle them. I mean, no gloves, no anything. As long as you're not trying to smash them.
Does he talk to him?
I'm not really, but not that I know of.
Well, you might tell him that he might need to. He'd have good luck if he tells him about weddings.
Ask him if he talks to him in English or in bee language. That's what I want to know.
Or maybe it's Celtic.
Maybe.
Or there's like 2 bee languages. They buzz, but they also do that butt dance. Does he like
the bee dance?
get up there and
you got pheromones? Are you buying that pheromone cologne and
in a bee suit?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Too funny.
They're getting his hands on.
Apparently Dr. Squatch has a clone, kind of like that. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
That's all I got.
I'm pretty much out of anything intelligent.
Oh,
I didn't know we were supposed to be intelligent about it. Sorry.
Oh, well, maybe that's where I made my mistake.
That has never been a rule here, as far as I know.
No.
Phew.
Thank goodness.
It's interesting where one article will take you, though, because I jumped all over the place tonight on stuff.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I like about looking into some of this stuff. You'll just jump from this to that to this to that.
He did. You're right. I forgot about him.
Yeah, Izzo said the bee guy from The Simpsons spoke Spanish. That's what he's going with. I can't speak Spanish.
Say habla español. I don't know.
Wait a minute. You don't want nothing to do with those bees down from South America. Aren't they all like killer bees?
Killer bees?
Killer bee.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, no, those are from Africa.
Oh, the Africanized bees. That's right. Okay.
Yep.
But wait a minute,
There-
didn't they come over into South America and they were like heading up towards us? Isn't that how?
I don't
Yes,
know. I do know
because-
that they are very good honey producers.
There is actually just south of Copan Lake, and I'll have to go check and see if it's still there because it was when we were storm chasing, so it's been a few years. But there is like a little what are they called? It's the big electrical things.
Power station
Sub-
or
Yes,
substation?
it's a substation, and it has a sign on the front of it, and it says, "Be warned about bees that may attack." And I don't remember if it said could be Africanized killer bees. I don't remember if it said that, but I remember I took a picture of it. I'll have to see if I can find it somewhere. But it says something to that effect of stay away from, if you see bees in this area, stay away from it. I had never heard of them in that area before. And I don't know if they are in that area, but I remember seeing that sign and wondering if it's something that they had to put on all substations or why it was on that one in particular.
Unless the
That's
frequencies coming off of it making them go crazy.
Oh, maybe. I didn't think of
could
that.
be.
I don't know.
And the thing is we did it to ourselves.
Yeah.
We
Mm.
brought African bees over. I guess you can't tell any difference between them genetically.
Till they
Maybe-
start killing you.
Yeah, until they attack you.
You know, I haven't heard any attacks or anything like that in a long time, though. I don't know if they're just accepted now. Just watch out for them, or
I
Bees
don't
could be medicinal, though. I mean, this is kind of down the rabbit hole, but a few years ago, I read a story about a elderly woman with very bad arthritis that was attacked by Africanized bees. She fell down on the ground, and they kept attacking her. But she lived. She was sick for quite a while, but when she recovered, all of her arthritis pain and a lot of her ailments were gone,
Mhm.
and they attributed it to the bee stings.
Yeah, I have heard that before.
So maybe they're just trying to save your life.
It's a
Not-
fine line, you know.
You know, you just go a little too far.
Yep. But no, bees are interesting.
yeah. Enzo said killer bees were a '70s movie trope. Said they exist, but we're never wiping out villages and such.
Weren't they a couple of years ago? Weren't they? Because wasn't that on like the COVID bingo card where they were coming into like Oregon or somewhere?
I've
The
got
murder
it.
hornets.
I just looked it
Murder
up.
hornets. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Murder.
So they said they did come up into it. They're currently in the lower states, Texas, California, New Mexico, places like that.
Mhm.
However, they weren't nearly as deadly to humans as they originally thought.
That's good.
They're in small clusters because they don't survive well as they spread out, and our pesticides have taken care of most of the colonies. But they said while stinging incidents do occur, very rarely does it kill anyone. It's just a good, nasty sting. So they're in the US right now, but their colonies don't do well. So they
That's
don't last for very long. And
Well, probably
their
even
stings
if
aren't as
you-
killer.
Even if you've got them and you're wearing your beekeeping attire, you're probably fine
Probably.
and probably getting really good honey.
Yeah.
Unless
I
you
mean,
run
we've
into
got
them
a-
out in the wild, which would be like stepping on a fire ant, you know,
Yeah.
big pile of fire
I
ants.
hate
It
fire
says
ants.
I do too.
they can't actually go much further than the lower parts of Texas and like California and stuff because they can't take the cold at
cold.
all.
I'm gonna have to go. I know which substation it is. We'll have to road trip out there and see if that sign's still up.
Hmm.
Because I know where it's
There
at.
you go.
I know we've got a hive and not killer bees, but over one of our cedar trees out front. And we're like, man, that's cool. I mean, because we're wanting to get bees too, to kind of produce our own honey.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, if we
Especially if your
could.
brother has them, he could help you
Yeah.
get it.
But he was telling me that their range is like 5 or 6 miles, and if they catch another bee or something in their range, they will actually kill them.
Yeah.
You know, because they'll find their hive. You know, the other bee will find their hive and
Attack it.
try to get their honey or whatever, and they'll kill them and just push them out.
Not in my watch, bucko.
But
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to capture this hive out here and put him in our hive that we
Yeah.
have because we bought a hive, and but yeah, this is like last fall. So he's like, man, just leave them. They're getting set in for winter and all that. So I was like,
Yeah.
they're kind of cool, But he even knows because he ordered, but
Mhm.
these wild bees, he grabbed a ladder and he climbed up there because there's a hole in the tree and they're all in there. He was picking them up by hand. I mean, nothing. It's pretty interesting to watch. They're pretty cool to watch.
If you can capture the queen,
Yep.
you can move the whole hive just by moving the one bee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can't get in that tree, so the hole's not big enough.
I can't get in any tree, so
I
mean,
found
The
it.
poo. Get stuck
Okay,
in
I found the sign. And it says, this is from one in Kansas. It says Africanized bees may be present. Pull vehicle inside fence, keep windows up, keep doors unlocked. Survey the area prior to start of work. If bees are encountered, notify your dispatcher. That's in the Tulsa World, actually, is where they showed that.
oh wow.
Why
Yeah,
at the state fair?
No,
I see
there's a guy.
Enzo in his overalls with his honey. Come
Well, he's
and
got to
buy
have
my
the Hawaiian
honey.
shirt on. Hawaiian shirt under the overall.
I mean, that's not as unattractive as you might think. I mean, it's fine.
Does he still
Enzo,
have
I
his
will buy you
Hawaiian
a pair of-
shirt
Yeah.
with the overalls?
I will
His
buy
straw
Enzo a
hat.
pair of overalls. Send me your size, buddy. We'll get them sent to you.
Can we find Hawaiian print overalls? Or is that
Oh,
too
that'd be
much?
great.
We can get white ones and then decorate them.
We could.
There you go.
We get the material. My mom knows how to sew really well.
There you go.
Custom made.
Okay, Mark, I just emailed that to you so you can pull it up and check it out.
I know up here at the
I'll
farmers
pull it up on
market
my phone.
in Independence, they got a guy that produces his own honey. Man, that honey is so good.
There used to be a guy in Nite's.
Yeah, overalls and Hawaiian shirt. Still not the strangest side of the state fair.
That's
the
very
truth.
true.
That
It's
is
like what Jeff
definitely the
Foxworthy
truth.
says. Have you heard Jeff Foxworthy talk about the
Oh,
state
yeah.
fair? The people you see at the state fair, and you're related to half of them and ashamed.
Definitely.
He's like you see a huge woman with like 8 kids trailing along behind her in
No,
her
moo, moo.
flip flops, and he's screaming, "Oh my God, somebody slept with that woman!" And then he realizes it's his aunt.
Yeah,
It's
this
like
is
that story of the greeter who got fired in one day at Walmart. They told him it just wasn't for him. A woman came in with 2 kids. I guess she wasn't much to look at. He goes, "Excuse me, madam, are those boys twins?" And she goes, "No, they're not twins, you moron. One of them's 11 and one of them's 2. And he replied back, "Well, I couldn't imagine anyone sleeping with you twice, so I had to ask."
Oh,
God. That's bad.
Facebook is a source of some of the worst jokes.
mhm.
It's so bad that they're good.
That's funny.
I don't know. People with no sense of humor, I guess.
But
Should I tell him the joke that I told you backstage, Mark?
Go ahead. It's a good one. Well, it's not.
Okay.
But
So, where do you take a victim of peekaboo? The ICU.
oh, good Lord. Oh, that's so bad.
I know it's super lame.
I have to tell Chloe.
follow
She was
these,
telling me
like,
jokes today.
I follow these guys. They're like on TikTok or Instagram, something like that. It's like these 3 guys that are always out hunting and fishing, and they straight face tell each other really bad dad jokes until one of them cracks. And them telling it straight faced and very quietly, like the way they do, very even tone, makes them even funnier.
And then they take their beer and drink it before they die laughing. I've seen them. They're hilarious.
Dad jokes are the best jokes. I'm not
Yep.
gonna lie.
That's funny.
All right. Well, I've got nothing.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm just reaching. I'm telling bad internet jokes. So we should probably save our listeners live by.
Well, what do we
silencing
want to
them.
do? What do we want to do next time? Do we want to do stories on hospice care worker stories
let's do
or
that.
doppelgangers?
cool.
You want to do that?
Oh, and I
I
was
like
going to say,
hospice.
I saw somebody talk about Nurse Hadley. She's on TikTok, and she's got some really good stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good
She
place
just
to
wrote a
go.
book too, I think.
Yeah, we can do. That would be good. Either one of those. I'd like to do both of them at some point anyway. So
That'd
Mm-hmm.
be cool.
Yeah, let's do hospice. I think it'd be fun.
Hospice stories. All
Yeah.
right, that's what we will do 2 Mondays from now.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants
Holy
to
cow, are we
let us
prepared for the
know.
next one already?
Already.
That
Yeah.
never happens.
What the heck?
that does never happen. Well, you know what? Let's make it a tradition at the end of the show, and we could get the viewing audience to pitch in too, starting next time. Let us know what we should have the show on next time.
There we go.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That's a good idea.
That would be fun. And maybe I'll be better prepared most days. Those 6-day weeks kill me.
Yeah.
Those are rough.
Yeah. And everybody make sure to check in Bordertown Strange next week on Wednesday, because we're going to do part 2 of the cursed objects, because we didn't have enough time.
Yeah, I've got something really interesting to go over, and I'm I'm chomping at the bit. Spit it.
Yay. That's cool.
I'm almost thinking about snagging Big Willie and inviting him in too for the night, because I found a lot of cursed objects in Michigan. And that's
nice.
his stomping grounds.
Oh,
I
we'll
don't
have
know.
to send him looking for him.
Yeah, we have quite a bit more stuff to do. So I don't know if we could squeeze in extra stories, but
no, we could always make it a 3-parter.
Make it a 3-parter and make him perform the whole third one like a monkey, because that's what he gets for missing our party. He'd be like, "Dance,
He missed
monkey."
a good time.
He did miss a good time, but he was very, very ill.
Oh, that's right. I
His
was going to
wife-
say, yeah, he was sick, wasn't he?
his
Okay,
wife
maybe we'll
promised
give him
me
a.
He was not a pretty sight. He was pretty green.
Yeah. Sylvian, we have On the Fringe on YouTube and Bordertown Strange. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that what you have
Bordertown
on your
Strange.
YouTube channel?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Bordertown Strange. BORDERTON.
We're getting ready for episode number 3, so you haven't missed much.
Oh, TOWN.
And we would love to have you on there, Sylvain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We would.
Mark didn't do his homework. He had my submission.
I mean, I did some homework poorly.
Whatever.
Oh.
Got your links. Let's see. Let me pull it up real quick. We'll put them in the chat. How about, well, yeah.
And they are on the Facebook group.
Yes.
The link to Bordertown Strange is on the Facebook group. So for What If Tomorrow podcast.
Phil,
group.
if you're putting it in chat, it should just be at Bordertown, capital B, capital Strange, capital S on the Strange, I should say. And that should pull it.
See what that comes up. All right, here is.
I left my ghost off on the wall. He's actually easier to see when he's turned off.
Yeah, it is.
When he's on, he just glows.
And then Bordertown Strange.
I have to have my alien on, or you can't tell what it is.
I like your alien. He's pretty cool.
You're like, what's that upside down teardrop in the background?
He looks like
Yeah,
the President Alien.
I need something more cool on the wall behind me.
More cool.
Well, I tried to I
don't
threw
know,
the
Mark.
alien up there to make it
pretty
look a little bit
cool.
more paranormal. Or
Look at you getting fancy with the different
yeah,
camera
he's all the
angles.
different angles. He's all like camera
Wow.
1, camera 2, camera 1.
I could add
camera
a third
2.
one. I mean, I have the technology now. I could probably get a camera that comes straight down and you can see all my keyboard stuff. Ooh, or one
Ooh,
from
you
behind
could be
me.
like a drummer. You can see you work.
All right, links are shared. We'll make sure we put them up on the Facebook groups, both groups. That way everybody can get them.
Yeah, we'd love to have you chit-chatting with us, Sylvan.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, come hang out.
We have crazy time at Bordertown Strange too. It's basically this show in a different format.
Yeah. It is.
Yep.
Only Pam and I get to introduce it, and then those two yahoos.
Pam
kinda
gets
get
And
the-
I the last
the only
show
difference.
I shared and streamed to our On the Fringe.
Yep. On
So,
Facebook.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
a new feature on StreamYard, and I wanted to try it out.
Yep, and we'll continue to do that, I guess. I mean, I tried to make it last week. By the time I got home, you guys were about done. So
Yeah.
Well, you know,
We missed you.
I mean, you got stuff going on, man.
yep,
We get it.
Mhm.
it's never ending, man.
Right.
But
Well, if we ever need to fill a block, we'll just throw Enzo in there because it's like I said, he's kind of like our little mascot now.
he is.
Don't
He
call
is.
him
Floats
mascot.
around all of our pages and stuff. So
He's our
Nothing wrong
best
with that.
friend.
I didn't think about we could have streamed it to Bordertown Strange tonight. We should have done that.
Yeah, you could have done that.
Yeah, we'll have to do that next time.
It's kind of a neat thing to do. If we have a guest on, they can stream it to their site.
Yes, it's really cool.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
I like playing
guess,
with all the new tech.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. I guess if nobody has anything else, we will close her out. Enzo cities everywhere. Overalls not included.
we need to
Oh,
fix that.
Action figure.
They will be. They will be. If I have to measure your
about-
inseam myself.
We need
Oh,
Hawaiian
God.
overalls.
Oh God.
And we need Enzo bobbleheads, like we talked about.
We do.
Oh yeah,
We do,
Enzo
absolutely.
bobbleheads.
We do.
With
I'll put it
whiskey
right
bottle
there.
and the Hawaiian shirt.
Right there,
The bobble
right
in.
there.
Do that.
Well, all right. Well, everybody, I appreciate you hanging out in the chat. It's been a lot of fun as always. Fun stories. Look for us here in 2 weeks. And then we're talking. We decided hospice care, right? And hospice experiences.
Hospice stories, yeah.
Then again, Bordertown Strange next Wednesday, and then what if tomorrow next Monday? So, and I have no clues of what we're talking about. So,
And Muck's tomorrow night.
and Amok is tomorrow night. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yep.
You guys are
Who
every.
you
Are you
having
guys
on
every?
the muck?
We're every Tuesday. Amok is every Tuesday. Yeah.
Who are you
Pam
having
is a
on?
busy girl.
I'm not sure. It's Missouri's turn, and Missouri's guest had to cancel, and I'm not sure he's found a replacement yet. So it's going to be a surprise.
Right.
Woo!
Potluck.
Woo!
I have one of those every time I wake up. It's like,
Potluck night.
surprise, you're still
Exactly.
alive, fat boy.
Aw.
With that being said, guys, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next episode.
Good
Night,
night.
everybody.
Good night.